Hello Year 12s and welcome to this video on workplace relations, the roles of participants in the workplace. There are 4 things that you need to do while you're watching this video. The first thing is to take the very best Cornell notes that you can. The second thing is to use the pause and rewind functions. Use the pause function if you need to stop this video to give you time to take notes. Use the rewind function if you've missed any information in this video and you want to go back over that information. The third thing that you need to do is to have your vocabulary sheets open in front of you so that you can write into your vocabulary sheets the definitions of important terms or of any other words that you may be unfamiliar with. And the fourth and final thing that you need to do is to have in front of you your summary books so that you can include in your summary books the points that I specifically tell you to include in this video. Once you've finished watching this video, please make sure that you read the pages from the textbook referred to on this slide. If you find any additional information from that reading that you think is useful, then supplement your Cornell notes with that information. Well, let's get started then. Here is the learning intention for this video. You need to be able to explain the roles of participants in the workplace, including human resource managers, employees, employer associations, and unions. Make sure that you write this learning intention down in your Cornell notes. Workplace relations is about the relationship between employers and employees in the workplace. Among other things, this relationship involves, firstly, establishing the wages and conditions of employment of employees, and secondly, settling workplace disputes. The aim or purpose of workplace relations is to achieve the best possible working relationship between managers and employees. Workplace relations is important because positive workplace relations, that is, a good working relationship between managers and employees, increases employee motivation. Employees are motivated by positive workplace relations because a good working relationship between managers and employees is one where managers value employees, where managers take the interests of employees into account by involving them in decision making, where managers provide their employees with fair remuneration, a safe working environment, and job security, and where managers provide employees with fair procedures for assessing employee performance and resolving employee complaints. As you know, employees who are motivated will work harder for the business, and this will increase the productivity, performance, and profitability of the business. So, positive workplace relations, that is, a good working relationship between managers and employees, will increase employee motivation and will therefore improve the productivity, performance, and profitability of the business. On this slide, I have summarized 4 factors that contribute to positive workplace relations. Now remember that I keep on saying that business management is all about boxes and links. Well, here are some very important links between workplace relations and concepts that we've already studied in business management. First, there will be positive workplace relations, that is, a good working relationship between management and employees, where both managers and employees share the same values and beliefs, that is, where there is a strong corporate culture. In such a case, both managers and employees want the business to succeed, and so they'll work together to ensure that the business succeeds by achieving its business objectives. Second, there will be positive workplace relations, that is, a good working relationship between managers and employees, where managers value employee contributions and involve employees in decision-making. That is, where managers adopt either a consultative or a participative management style. Both of these management styles involve two-way communication between managers and employees and teamwork between managers and employees. As we've seen, where employees feel valued, including because they're involved in decision-making, then they will be motivated to work hard for the business. Third, employees are important stakeholders in a business, and so a business must try to satisfy the interests of employees. Interests that employees have as stakeholders include an interest in fair pay and working conditions, an interest in a safe workplace, an interest in job security, an interest in fair procedures for assessing employee performance, and an interest in fair procedures for resolving complaints where managers treat employee complaints seriously. Fourthly and finally, there will be positive workplace relations, that is a good working relationship between managers and employees, where both managers and employees have a flexible mindset to deal with change. As we'll see in Unit 4, change is inevitable, and so it's very important that both managers and employees are prepared to adapt to change together rather than to resist it. As you can see from this slide, there are a number of participants in workplace relations. On the employee side, we have employees and trade unions. On the employer or management side, we have employers, employer associations, and the Human Resources Department. You'll recall from the work that we've done on areas of management responsibility that human resources is one of the 5 key areas of management responsibility in a business. In this video, we will be explaining the roles of employees, trade unions, employer associations, and the Human Resources Department. The government and various Fair Work institutions are also participants in workplace relations. We'll be dealing with the role that they play in a later video. Let's start off by looking at employees and trade unions. A trade union is an organisation formed to represent and protect the rights of workers in a particular industry. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term trade union and write this definition in there. In Australia, trade unions have been very successful in achieving significant improvements in the working conditions for Australian workers. It's largely through the efforts of trade unions that we now have a 38-hour working week, an entitlement to annual leave, an entitlement to superannuation, and an entitlement to other benefits such as maternity leave and parental leave. It's not compulsory for an employee to join a trade union. However, if an employee does wish to join a trade union, then they must pay an annual subscription fee to the union for their membership. In Australia, we have the Australian Council of Trade Unions, or ACTU, which is a national body that represents the trade union movement on national issues. For example, it is the ACTU which has been responsible for putting forward the trade union movement's views on penalty rates and their abolition across Australia. In Victoria, the Victorian Trades Hall Council implements ACTU policy. For instance, where there are industrial relations matters that affect Victorian workers, then it is the responsibility of the Victorian Trades Hall Council to represent the trade union movement's views on those matters, including to the Victorian government. Different unions represent employees in different industries. One example of a union is the CFMEU, which represents construction, forestry and mining workers. Another example of a union is the AMWU, which represents employees in industries such as the retail industry. Currently, approximately 17.5% of employees in Australia are members of a trade union. Then, in different workplaces, we have shop stewards. A shop steward is a union member who's employed in a particular workplace and is elected by the other union members at that workplace to liaise on their behalf with management and the union about workplace relations issues. Our learning intention requires that you must be able to explain the role of trade unions in the workplace. So this is a very important slide that you need to copy into your summary books. As you can see from this slide, trade unions have 4 main roles in the workplace. The first role relates to collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is a process in which employees negotiate with their employer to agree the wages and conditions of employment that are to apply in their workplace. One important role of trade unions is to represent the union members in a workplace when they are negotiating their wages and conditions with their employer in this collective bargaining process. The purpose of collective bargaining is for the employer and the employees to agree on an enterprise agreement, also known as a collective agreement, that sets out the wages and employment conditions that are to apply in that workplace. We'll be looking at enterprise agreements in more detail in a subsequent video. The second important role that trade unions play in the workplace is to represent union members in hearings by the Fair Work Commission to determine awards. Again, we'll be looking at awards in more detail in a subsequent video. The third role of trade unions in the workplace is to support and advise shop stewards on workplace relations issues that relate to the workplace where the shop steward is employed. And the fourth and final role of trade unions in workplace relations is to support and advise individual union members about their rights and obligations in the workplace. For example, as where that union member is being threatened with dismissal. This brings us to employers and employer associations. An employer association is an organisation formed to represent and provide advice to employers on workplace relations issues. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term employer association and write this definition in there. There are three types of employer associations. First, there are industry associations which represent employers from the same industry. An example is the Master Builders Association, which represents builders. Second, there are professional associations which represent employers from the same profession. An example is the Australian Medical Association, which represents doctors. And finally, we have peak bodies, which are employer associations that represent employers from a variety of industries. An example is the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which represents employers from all of the different industries that operate in Victoria. Again, recall that our learning intention requires you to be able to explain the role of employer associations in the workplace. And so this is a very important slide which you need to copy into your summary books. Employer associations perform four important roles in the workplace. The first of these roles is in relation to collective bargaining. As I've said, collective bargaining is a process in which employees negotiate with their employer to agree the wages and conditions of employment that are to apply in the workplace. One important role of employer associations is to represent employers when they are negotiating the wages and other conditions that are to apply to their employees in the employer's workplace. As I've also said, the outcome of the collective bargaining process is intended to be an enterprise agreement or a collective agreement, and we'll be looking at enterprise agreements in more detail in a subsequent video. The second important role that employer associations have is to represent employers in hearings by the Fair Work Commission to determine awards. And again, we'll be looking at awards in more detail in a subsequent video. The third role of employer associations is to support and advise employers on workplace relations issues that relate to the employer's workplace. And the fourth and final role that employer associations have in the workplace is to act as the official media spokesperson for employers on workplace relations issues that affect those employers. Now we come to human resource managers. As we've seen from our work on areas of management responsibility, the Human Resources Department, or Human Resources Area of Management Responsibility, is one of the 5 key areas of management responsibility in a business. One important function that the Human Resources Department has is to oversee the implementation of the business's workplace relations policy. Within the Human Resources Department, there are people called HR or Human Resources Managers. Their function is to liaise with other business units, that is, other departments within the business, to maintain a harmonious relationship between the business and its employees. That is, to create and maintain positive workplace relations. At the outset of this video, we've already seen that positive workplace relations are important to the success of a business because positive workplace relations increase employee motivation, which in turn improves the productivity, performance, and profitability of the business. Now we come to a very important point for you to remember. This is that the Human Resources Department is there to represent the interests of the business, not the interests of the employees of the business. For example, where the Human Resources Department agrees to increase the wages of employees, this is not because the Human Resources Department is acting on behalf of the employees. Instead, it's because increasing the wages of the employees is in the interests of the business. For instance, as where that increase in wages is intended to motivate employees to work harder. In this case, the reason the Human Resources Department is increasing employees' wages is to improve the productivity, performance, and profitability of the business. Our learning intention requires that you must be able to explain the role of human resource managers in the workplace, and so this is a very important slide that you need to copy into your summary books. As you can see from this slide, human resource managers have 4 important roles. The first role is in the administration of day-to-day procedures. For example, it is the responsibility of the human resource manager to ensure that employees receive their correct wages and entitlements. The second role of human resource managers is in collective bargaining. As I've said, collective bargaining is a process in which employees negotiate with their employer to agree the wages and conditions of employment that are to apply in their workplace. It is one of the roles of human resource managers, perhaps together with the relevant employer association, to represent the employer in negotiating the wages and conditions of employment with the employees, who may also be represented by their trade union. The third role of human resource managers is in dispute resolution. That is, human resource managers participate in the resolution of disputes in the workplace. These might, for example, be disputes about wages or workplace conditions, or disputes arising out of action taken against a particular employee, for example, where the employee is being dismissed. The fourth and final role of human resource managers is to respond to queries from both employees and management about workplace relations issues, such as the wages that might be payable, the conditions of employment that are applicable, procedures for resolving complaints, procedures for performance management, and so on. Well, this now brings us to the end of this video. By now, you should be able to explain the roles of participants in the workplace, including human resource managers, employees, employer associations, and unions. Please remember to read the pages from the textbook referred to on the first slide in this video, and if you find any additional information from that reading that you think is useful, supplement your Cornell notes with that information. Thank you for your attention.